good to see this number here this evening. I want to speak this evening about what our aim should be when we think about, well, what should be my perspective of this world? What's your world view of things? And what should be our goal in reference to that view? And a lot of people don't have this view, but it's a biblical view, as we see at the outset, that we look at this world comprised of that which is good or evil, good or bad. And it's a moral reflection. Not easy and hard, good and evil. And what we observe is that, for example, the judgment day, we want to fast forward to see what's important from the perspective of God, how we should look at our life. We're going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ, give an answer what we individually have done in our body, and whether it be good, some versions have bad, some have evil. Whether it be good or evil. And therefore, I want to be looking at things the way God looks at things, knowing that I'm going to meet the Lord in judgment. And I want to reflect upon my life. Is it good or evil? Is it evil or good? And we find how we can do that in 1 Thessalonians, the 5th chapter, and verses 19 through 20. A number of things he gives to us real quickly. A lot of commandments here, a lot of action that we should have in our lives. I want to pray without ceasing, everything give God thanks and so forth. But in verse 19 he says, quench not the spirit. We don't want to snuff out the Spirit. How do you do that? We're not going to stop the Holy Spirit, but the Spirit's word, we can quench it. That's why he says, despise not prophesying. In the New Testament, that early time when the New Testament was unfolding, the prophets would present the inspired word of God. The apostles would be writing by inspiration, but until then, the prophets would give that. So I do not want to quench the Holy Spirit by despising what the prophets of God have spoken. But I'm to prove all things. What's my standard? I've got to have a standard, because what happens is that when I proved it, what lasts that I need to hold on to, hold fast to that which is good, and then abstain from every form of evil. That phrase, every form of evil, can be used to go to the extreme that whatever I think is evil, you can't do. We're to abstain from every form of evil. And if I consider it evil, then it's what's important. No, after I put the standard to it, and that form comes up on my scene, it's there, it's evil. I'm to abstain from that. It's not what people think so and what they may think so, and it may not be evil to you, but it's evil to me, so you can't do it, and if you do that, you're sinning. No, it's a standard of God. Does God describe it as evil? And we discern, as we grow in our faith, we discern what is good and evil. Not, I discern between good and evil. Hebrews says, I discern good, I discern evil. I'm going to prove it. And we spend our life now, where's my target? What am I aiming for? I'm going to not squench the Spirit and snuff out the Spirit's teaching. That's going to be my standard for my view of my life, and my life is going to be summed up in that which is good or evil. It's pretty simple. Complicated, because there's a lot of things. How am I going to fit things in, and what is that? But we spend our life in. We have a moral perspective of this world. But let's take it to the next stop that God demands us to do. I'm not only to be able to know the good and evil, abstain from when the form of evil is out in front of me, it makes itself manifest. But we're to overcome evil too. And in 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 15, we're not to render anyone evil for evil, but always follow after that which is good. Now, I don't see overcome there. I said, well, this is the way I'm going to walk my life and live my life. I'm not going to render people evil when they do me evil. But I'm going to always follow after that which is good toward one another and toward all. That means everybody. That's the way I'm going to live my life. Not going to retaliate with evil. I know how they did that. but I'm not going to retaliate with evil, but I'm going to do that which is good. That's fine. But what God says, I want you to now overcome evil with good. And we read that in Romans the 12th chapter in verse 21, where the Apostle Paul speaks about that we're not to be overcome of evil. So evil's out there. You can deny it all you want to, but see, that's the perspective of the world from the Christian's perspective in line with God. Evil's there. I know it. I understand I've proved what is good. I'm going to follow after that which is good. I'm not going to let that evil overcome me. Instead, I'm going to live my life where I am constantly, my goal is to not let it destroy me. I'm here to destroy evil in my little portion of the world, in my little time frame that I live. When evil comes, it's not going to destroy me, because that's the way the devil would like to do. I'm not going to let evil do that. In fact, I'm going to overcome it with good. And that's not a suggestion. That's not a super Christian characteristic. That's what we're supposed to be. Overcoming evil every day we live. Keeping the Word of God alive in our hearts. And we're to overcome evil, not let it overcome us. So I don't want to leave Romans the 12th chapter tonight. That's where we're going to be. Because I believe we see here that when evil comes, I can't control that. I can't control how people are going to react at a certain time with my actions. I can plan for it and try to avoid how it's going to be perceived. But when we have the truth of God and we've got to live it, we've got to teach it, not everybody's going to like that. And we say, well, I've got to do that, but I can kind of hold on to the fact that even though they may do something back to me, I'm not going to be trying to be vengeful. But what I'm going to do, I'm not going to let it destroy me. I'm going to overcome it. And Romans the 12th chapter tells us how to do that. And what we begin to see is that there's something when evil hits us. The form is there and it's attacked us. Maybe it's an enemy. Maybe it's injustice. Maybe it's a persecution. I can't control that, because you're going to change how you're supposed to live for God? No. That's going to come. If you live godly, you'll suffer persecution. But when people do things to you and you have no control over that, what do you do next? Well, you keep a record of it, and you'll never forget that. In fact, you can still remember the times when somebody treated you so badly or embarrassed you or was unkind to you. That's hard to forget. But you don't have to allow it to destroy you. And I think we have some helps here in Romans the 12th chapter. Let's back up to verse 14 of Romans 12. Something that Jesus teaches us to do, but let's start with this one. Paul says this: bless them that persecute you, bless and curse not. Now that would be going evil for evil. They didn't have a right to persecute me. I'm standing for what's right. They maybe did it out of ignorance, but they did it, and it hurts. I do not retaliate with evil. I'm going to curse them. What am I going to do? I'm going to pray for them. Bless them that persecute you. Do not curse them. I could curse them, and you could get even with them. But see, that's not the way we're going to overcome evil. And I've always looked at evil being, well, let's keep a scorecard, and here's evil done, and that's done to me, and now what am I going to do about it? That's what I have control over. I'm going to make evil 2, and good no, 0, because I'm going to retaliate with it? No, I'm going to return that with good, and that's how I'm going to overcome it. No, it's 1-to-1. It's tied up. No, I have overcome that, because the devil would like me to retaliate in an evil, bad way. And you're not going to do that. You're overcoming evil. So what do you put in the place of that? Prayer. Prayer. You pray for them that persecute you. Listen to Jesus in Matthew, the 5th chapter, Sermon on the Mount. He's the one that sets this forth before our eyes and wants us to do this as being followers of his teaching. I say unto you, you've heard it was said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say, love your enemies and pray for them that persecute you. So you'll be what? You'll be sons of your Father who is in heaven. Imagine that. We're not deity, but we have the manifestation. We're manifesting the godly character, because what does he do? He maketh the sun to rise on the evil and the good. His sun, rising in the morning, is going to rise up upon every atheist that hates God, that has no room for God in his life. He's going to use the sunshine to get all of his work done, never praising God, doing that which is evil, cheating other people. Sun's rising, and the rain's going to come and bless his food, and he'll have plenty to eat. He sendeth rain on the just and the unjust. That's what God does. And those are at enmity with him. He does it every morning and every rain shower and every season and every year. And while we can't cause it to rain and we can't cause the sun to rise, we can be as our Heavenly Father, because we will bless the people that hate us. We will bless the people in prayer. God's blessing be upon them. And you want to just pause. That's not easy to do, but it's effective in overcoming evil. Because all of a sudden, you're not going to be spending your moment and your energy thinking how to get even. You're going to be saying, God, I don't understand them. Help me to understand them. But pray that they will have a better understanding of your truth and that sort of thing, and that I'm not that evil of a person. I don't know what you're going to say. But just pray to God for their well-being. And when you get off your knees, you'll think differently about your enemy. And what you've done them good. And that's the first thing we can do. We can pray for our enemies instead of retaliating back with them. Drop down with me to verse 17. When he speaks that we're not to render them evil for evil, but we're to take thought for the things honorable in the sight of all men. We have a choice to make. How am I going to now retaliate against evil? How am I going to react to it? Am I going to absorb it like a sponge? And that's going to be my energy, just absorbing just what things have done for me, and that maybe that will cause me to want to get even sometime? No, that's not the route to go. What I'm going to do is think for just a moment. What have we considered honorable in the sight of all men? We spend, you may do that, but we communicate today, not with a pen and paper. We click and click and click, and we send messages, text messages, and we can send emails, and we can text so quickly, and we can be so angry, and we can send a message. But don't send a message when you're angry. You know why? You may not wake up in the morning and think that was a very honorable thing to do. Maybe it was a right thing to do to get them told. And maybe in some circles, you got them told, good for you, but that's not honorable. See, you live in a world where you want to overcome evil with good. So you take thought for the things that are honorable in the sight of all men. And I think it's very wise that when something bothers you and you retaliate with that, with an answer, maybe answering them back, don't click it. Sleep on it. And maybe a day, well, it's over with then. Well, maybe it was worth being over with. But you reflect upon that. If people are going to see that, if a third party was going to look at your situation, how would they think, did you act honorable? And here, of course, the third party I'm thinking about is God. But I'll sometimes think about it'd be men. If they were to read the back and forth of an email where you're having a discussion with someone or have a problem with someone, you've been careful how you say this and say that, and you make sure that they're not, and that's the way with written communication, you're going to have to think about how would they perceive that. If I'm reading that, I want to read it critically before I send it. And I want at the end, maybe 10 years from now, they'll realize I was fair and I was honorable in the way I reacted to your comments about me or about the situation. That's a wonderful way to overcome evil, because what happens at the end is that people will make judgments. Maybe you retaliated by tearing down their character, tearing down their appearance, tearing down their knowledge, tearing down something about them. How dare you question me? You might be in that type of mode. You don't want to click and send that one. What would be helpful? And what would be an honor for God and for you, that if they were to read your reply, then that's when you click it. That's when you send it. And what we're doing, we're not allowing evil to overcome us. We're not absorbing it. We're reacting to that. We're just taking thought for things honorable in the sight of all men. And at the moment, losing our temper, at the moment, retaliating with curse words, retaliating with abusive language, retaliating with that we're out of control. That's not the way to respond to troubling situations. We got to learn, I don't want to do that. That's not honorable. And even a man on the street would say, that's not the way to react to it. And most important, how would God want us to react to that? That's why the Bible speaks about a lot about forbearance. Forbearance. That means I absorb the blows before I retaliate. Takes your breath away. It hurts, but you absorb it. I'm going to respond, but I want it to be honorable. I want that person to understand that this is an honorable way of looking at this, and it's an honorable way of reacting to them, and regardless of how bad they reacted to you. And that's the difference between a Christian with a perspective of this world of good and evil, and I'm here to overcome evil, and I'm overcoming it with the good. Verse 18. The Apostle Paul continues to give us some helpful ways of overcoming evil with good. If it be possible, as much as in you is, be at peace with all men. What is that telling you? It's implied there that sometimes you're not going to have peace with everybody. But see, I can control me. You can control you. As much as in me is, I'm waking up today and I want to have peace, and I know there's a problem here between this person, that person, and me, and I want to solve that. I don't want that to be a barrier. I want to be a solution. I don't want this to continue to be a problem. As much as in me is, I want to be at peace with all men. What do I do? Why don't you pursue it? No, I want it. No, I want you to take the step of pursuing it, because that's exactly what Peter says. If you want to see good days, you want to have good life, always see in 1 Peter 3 and verse 11, he says, let him turn away from evil and do good. All right, that's what I'm doing. Let him seek peace and pursue it. See, you can seek it and not really pursue it. I want it. We all want peace, but we're not pursuing it. And whether you are the one doing wrong at the moment or the one being wronged at the moment, Jesus has talked to both of you. And we're in that situation. He's talking to me in each situation. For example, I wonder if I know I have wronged someone. Now that takes humility. That takes reflection. That takes a heart that says, I'm willing to look at my life, my work at the end of the day. How have I treated them? And realize, that wasn't right to do. What should I do? Let it go? I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to church. And I'm going to go worship. And I'm going to get my mind off of that. Really? Jesus says in Matthew 5:24, he says, if you're offering a gift at the altar, and there rememberest that thou brother has aught against you. They haven't done you wrong. They have aught against you, and you know that. What should you do? Well, I like to have that, but it's not a priority. Oh, what do you mean, priority? You sure about that? Leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way, and be reconciled to thy brother. The innocent is never reconciled to their brother. The guilty one is. Be reconciled to your brother. And this particular term is that y'all come to an agreement. I want to solve the problem. And what do you have against me? If you perceive that as a problem in a relationship, you have the responsibility, and the priority is, I'm offering my gift, I'm going to work, I'll do this after church, maybe I need to go do it before services. And then you can go offer your gift. That's pursuing it. That's trying to get to the matter and realize, let's solve this. But if someone has done you wrong, and they're not coming to you like Matthew 5:24 ought to be done, then you go to them. If thy brother sin against thee, verse 15 of Matthew, the 18th chapter, he said, go. So you're pursuing something. Go and show him his fault between thee and him alone. And if he hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. No one else has to know about that. It's been solved. Mission accomplished. We've overcome evil, which is division. And nobody knows about this but you and me, the ones that have been wronged and the ones that have done the wrong. We've got that solved. That's how we work. But see, that's action being done instead of just looking at the evil done to us, or kind of masking over, well, that wasn't too bad on that person. Maybe that hurt them badly. But you can solve that. And that's how we're overcoming evil, overcoming division, by doing that which is good. And that is very instructive. Verse 19. Again, he speaks again of effective ways in order to overcome the evil with the good. And now he gets to the point where we usually think about, I'm going to get even. He said, no, we're going to address that. Avenge not yourself, in Romans 12:19, but give place unto the one who deserves that. And said, vengeance belongs to me, but give place unto the wrath of God. Give place unto the wrath of God. So I'm not to return evil for evil. I'm to take thought for things honorable in the sight of all men. And one of the things I can do, and I must do, is that I'm not going to try to get even and get justice right now. And my anger comes upon the person, I'm going to destroy them. God, in his plan of judging the world in righteousness through his Son, he has that place. And he's our creator. And he will avenge those who have been wronged. That's a blessing. Vengeance belongs to me. I will recompense, he says. And that becomes very important in life, to let things go. Because we haven't let them go into oblivion. Like the word said, you can't take them back, and they just go into outer space somewhere, and I'll never forget how hurtful they were. They're gone, but they're not gone, because we'll give an answer to everything we've done in our body, and we'll be justified by our words, and we'll be condemned by our words. The judgment day will come. And God sometimes brings forth his vengeance in time, but finally in eternity. In Jeremiah, we're studying him on Sunday right now. He has a practical way of how he dealt with that. And I want us to put it in perspective. He's a prophet, he's an inspired prophet, and he's going to teach the truth. And he's not going to change from it, and he speaks about that fact. because the people don't want to hear what he's saying. And they are against him because of what he teaches. Even his familiar friends. That hurts. And so he speaks in this context that of what he is going through. Back up to verse 7. Oh, Jehovah, he's talking to God. See, I'm going to pray to God. And now I'm talking because I feel the pain. And there's a part of me that wants to get even. There's a part of me that may want to quit. And those aren't two good choices. I'll just talk to you, God. And the way he does this, I think, is instructive. He said, I'm a laughing stock all the day. Everyone mocketh me. Is that a hyperbole? When you're hurt, that's probably what you feel. Everybody is mocking me. For as often as I speak, I cry out. What is he crying out? Judgment is coming. There's going to be a violent time of destruction. Context, Babylon is coming. Because the word of Jehovah is made a reproach unto me. They don't want to hear that truth. And so therefore I'm speaking it, and it becomes a reproach upon me. And I am a derision all the day. And I say I will not make mention of him. If that's the way I'm going to go, like I'm going to keep quiet. Nor shall I speak any more in his name. There's in my heart, as it were, a burning fire shut up in my bones. I am weary with forbearance. I cannot contain. I can't go that route. God, I'm your prophet, and I'm going to speak thy truth. And I've got to do that. But that's what gets me in trouble. And I am a laughing stock. Oh, that's never going to come. I'm in derision. I am reproached every day, and it hurts God. It hurts me, oh God. If I've heard, I know what they're saying. I've heard the defaming of the many, terror on every side. Denounce him, we will denounce him. Get everybody to denounce Jeremiah, and we'll win. We'll beat him. And say, all my familiar friends, they say this, they watch for my fall. Peradventure he will be persuaded, and we shall prevail against him. Maybe he'll realize, I'm going to shut up, and I'm not going to speak that nonsense. And he can't do that and be faithful to God. So God says there's another choice. And you're going to have to go through this. Well, how do you do that? Jehovah's with me. Oh, he's a mighty one. He's terrible because of his mighty power. Therefore my persecutors shall stumble, and they shall not prevail, because he knows there's justice in the hands of God. They shall be utterly put to shame of what the bad things you're saying about me. I know that's going to happen because, God, I trust in you. He's turning his vengeance over to God because they have not dealt wisely. He said, well, they're not dealt wisely. We can say, I bless them, Father, that they will know the truth before it's too late. We might throw that little blessing in that prayer of we're appealing to God's vengeance. Because they have not dealt wisely, even with an everlasting dishonor. They're going to be suffering dishonor, for it's eternal, which shall never be forgotten. But, O Jehovah of hosts, thou that triest the righteous and seest the heart and the mind, let me see thy vengeance on them. For I unto thee have revealed my cause. I just think that's so instructive. I've had a release point. I've talked to God. I think everybody's against me. And he hasn't told me, you're just paranoid. Sometimes people are against paranoid people. Sometimes some of that's true. It may be exaggerated because it hurts. So be it. You're talking to God, and I'm not going to get even with them. I'm not going to give in to them because they're wrong and everlastingly so. I'm not going to quit preaching, teaching, being a prophet. But God, let me see thy vengeance on them. Don't let error, don't let lies, don't let what they've done be the way it's going to go in history. and I've delivered unto you my cause. And it says, sing unto Jehovah, praise ye Jehovah, for he's delivered the soul of the needy from the hand of the evildoers. It started first in a prayer to God, telling him exactly how you feel. Instead of telling the other person, this is how I feel, and you don't care. You're not going to go there. You talk to God. And I have a release point where I don't absorb it, but I turn it over to God and realize that he indeed will take care of that problem in time or in eternity. The final one that he gives here, which is very much connected with overcoming evil with good, is that when your enemy hungers, feed them. When they are thirsty, give them drink. In so doing, you will heap coals of fire upon their heads. What that means, I'm squelching evil. I'm not getting even. Getting even? You're sick, I brought you some soup. Don't you feel bad about being mean to me? That's not it. If that's what you're doing, you just get evil 2, good 0. Your motives to get even and make them feel bad? They already feel bad. The chicken noodle soup is supposed to maybe comfort them. No, you want to say, I'm your enemy. This is what you did to me, and look what I did for you. And therefore, coals of fire on your head, sister. Coals of fire on your head, brother. No, that's evil. See, the Bible speaks about coals of fire squelching something. We see it in Psalm 140. It's part of God's judgment coming upon mankind, the coals of fire coming from above. And verse 9 says, as for the head of those that compass me about, let the mischief of their own lips cover them. Let them reap the consequences of their lips. Let burning coals fall upon them, and let them be cast into the fire. But what is being squelched here? It's not that I'm trying to destroy the person. I'm trying to react properly to the evil that they've done. They treated me badly. They've done that which is wrong. And in that sense, they're my enemy. But here's an occasion where they need help. They need assistance. And what I can do is to do good to them. That's why the soup's coming. Because they heard you make the best chicken noodle soup, and you're going to give them the best. And just help them through that difficult time. And no strings attached. Oh, they'll be your friend then. Not necessarily so. They may take it all wrong. But you did it with that right motive. And the point is no, I'm not going to retaliate with evil. And people can see this is just out of the goodness of your heart, and there's no strings attached, and you're not going to be an enemy a month from now when you don't even say thank you for it, and you didn't care about it. You let it go. You did that which is good for the moment that they needed that, and you let it go. You overcome evil with good, and God will reward you. You're giving them soup and making them feel bad for being your enemy is not your reward. And that with that attitude, that's what it becomes. I think this is instructive. Let's put it in the context in which Paul quotes the passage from the Old Testament. We see this verse set forth in Proverbs 25 and 21. And follow me closely as you see that the reward is not, well, I gave you soup, I gave you drink when you had need, when you were thirsty, and therefore that was my reward, making you feel bad about things, coals of fire on your head. If thy enemy be hungry, give him bread to eat. If he be thirsty, give him water to drink. And here comes the next verse. For if thou heap coals of fire upon his head, that's what you're doing. And Jehovah will reward thee. My reward is not heaping coals of fire upon his head. What I've done is that here was evil, that's why he became my enemy. And here is good. I heap coals of fire upon his head as doing that which was evil to me. Then God will reward me. That wasn't my reward. Got coals of fire on the head. They feel bad. That wasn't it. That's evil. That's bad motives. That's getting even. In the way the devil would like that. God will reward you. You're squelching the evil that came from that person. That's all. And they may not be your friend, so be it. I tell you, if someone did that, that'd be a good friend to have. Especially if they're good cooks. Maybe that down the road will be helpful too. But the point is, you're squelching the evil. Evil's won, good's nothing when you're enemy. But here's the occasion. They need help, and you do them good without any strings attached. You've overcome the evil. It hasn't caused you to absorb it and ruin you. You're the one that's overcoming that. When you live long enough in life, you're going to outlive people. You're going to outlive people that do you harm. And I've thought about that with these 5 points. How does that work with someone that's already dead and gone? Pray for them? As if we're going to change their destiny with a prayer of blessing after they're dead and gone? No, that didn't work. I'm not going to retaliate evil for evil, but I'm going to take thoughts of things that are honorable in the sight of all men and how I treat them when they're dead and gone, but that might be something to consider. They've already ended their lives, and God, you avenged it. God's going to take care of it in His part, so I'm not praying for vengeance now and destroy them. They're dead. And they're not sick anymore. They're not hungry, and they're not thirsty. What could I reflect upon that helps me to react properly when the enemy has done you wrong and you will never forget it as long as you live? And you don't want that to destroy you. I've lived long enough that people that have done that, they're dead and gone. Seek peace and pursue it, they're dead. What I can do is reflect upon maybe the good in their life, and we talk about honoring the dead, without reflecting upon the bad things that nobody ever knows that they did to you. And reflect upon those things. If someone asks about them, it would be honorable to speak evil of the dead and that sort of thing. You don't want to do that. And I can still let God have His day of vengeance, that He will correct all the wrongs that are done, and I can move on. But whether people have died, or especially people are alive, that you're interacting with, this is how we should overcome evil with good. And what are they? Prayer. Bless them. Curse them not. We're going to be involved in setting forth not only prayer, but we're going to perceive the things that are honorable in the sight of all men before we retaliate. We don't blow up with anger and say things we'll be sorry for the next day. We make sure we're doing that which is honorable. You're doing what you can. If you've been wrong, I'm going to go to them. If that's the big deal, and we can solve this, whether you've done wrong or whether you're doing wrong, you ought to be meeting. Because we want peace, and we can be involved in pursuing it. And we're going to give God His place in vengeance, because justice will prevail. God will judge. And every hidden thing will come before God. Every intent of the heart that you couldn't prove, but you felt, is going to be examined by God who judges righteously. And especially when that enemy is still alive and we can do something for them, we realize we want to do that which will benefit them. And when doing that, we will overcome evil with good. Which one of those is it easy to do? When you're hurt, when someone has done you wrong, which one of these is easy for you to do? God didn't say it's easy. There's a sign on a church building at my neighborhood. Faith doesn't make it easy, it just makes it possible. And there's some truth to that. This is the faith of the gospel. But here's the blessing. That it gives me in every situation, it tells me how to use my energy at that moment when I am hurt the deepest. That when someone has hurt you and hurt me, and we deeply feel it, at that moment when our emotions are high and when our hurt is real, and we're talking about the whole world looks down on me because of what's been said. It's at that moment that I can say, all right, that's evil. I have no control over that. But what I can do is pray that God will bless them, help them to see how they should go. I can start thinking, how should I react with it? It would be an honor. What should I do that maybe I can mend the fences here? I'll leave it over to God. I'll talk to God how bad it hurts and all this. I know God's vengeance will be employed. I can rely upon that. And if all of a sudden they need help, I can do that. It gives me a point of release. I'm not to be a sponge that soaks up all of the bad done to me and carry it on through my life. That's not how. He said, this is a release point. Pray, do, think. And I think that is so helpful because in living the life of a Christian, we get our moral perspectives in place and we aim that we're going to take the Word of God and we're going to apply that. And we're not just here to exist with the evil. We're here to overcome the evil with good. And every one of these things, they're good. And you know it. And by faith, you can put it into practice. And you can live a life in the midst of evil, even in the midst of injustice. And when the Hebrew writer says there's a root of bitterness that can come up and just destroy everybody around us and destroy us, we don't let that root of bitterness grow because this is what we're doing. We are making sure that root doesn't fester, and it's a root of bitterness. No, we're here and I'm serving God and I'm doing good. And we can see another day even among our enemies. So I hope that will help you in living the life of a Christian. Those of you in the audience who are not Christians yet, I want you to just be impressed that what God tells us how to live, He tells us to live pretty wisely. Those things from a secular point of view may not be commendable. So, well, you need to get even with people and you need to destroy them that try to destroy you, all that. But over time, that's not honorable. But doing what God says over time, your name will always be honorable. And your actions, when reviewed, maybe 100 years from now, said, that was an honorable way of dealing with that situation. And God will take care of all the injustice in the end. We know that by faith. So think about that. God not only wants to save your soul, but He tells us how we can live and live the greatest life we could ever live, influencing others and dealing with evil. And if you haven't started that life, we encourage you to do so now. Obey the gospel as we stand and as we sing.